The sword points to the clouds, the heart turns with the stars. Chapter 1, The Guidance of Fate. Between the high-rise buildings in the capital, there are always countless hurried figures in the streets and alleys. At this time, Shen Jun was walking through the bustling business district. Her eyes were a little confused, as if she was both familiar and unfamiliar with the city in front of her. She had just been laid off from the company, and left the office building with a work contract, full of unwillingness and confusion. Shen Jun is not a very good employee, and it can even be said that she is almost an insignificant presence in the crowd. Grades never made her the focus of attention at school, and after work, she was also obscure and often ignored. Over the years, she has often felt a strong sense of unease, as if something critical has been missing from her life. She grew up in an ordinary family, and her parents often said to her, "You, a child, have to work hard to find your own place." However, no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't seem to reach the desired heights. At this moment, she is standing at the crossroads of life, confused and helpless. Returning to her hometown for the spring festival was her initial choice. Along the way, the scenery outside the car window quickly receded, and the panic in her heart did not seem to subside, but intensified. At this time, a familiar figure appeared in her sight. It was a former classmate, Gu Zheng, Gu, rare word, meaning smart helmsman, Zheng, with a resounding image of steely toughness. He is now an executive of a well-known company, wearing a crisp suit, standing in the corner of the station. Shen Jun originally thought that he had long forgotten about this person, but Gu Zheng's appearance made her heart ripple again. Gu Zheng was Shen Jun's senior in high school, and she had a crush on him for a long time at that time, but because she was introverted and not good at expressing herself, she never had further contact. Gu Zheng's appearance always made her heart beat faster, but she couldn't get close. Now, the two meet again, and this long-lost throbbing is pouring into my heart like a tide. Shen Jun. Gu Zheng turned his head, his gaze fell on her, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. "Why are you here?" Shen Jun smiled slightly, trying to hide the fluctuations in his heart. "I go home for the new year." Gu Zheng also seemed to notice her discomfort, smiled, and patted her on the shoulder. "I heard that you are in BPO, what's the matter, did you encounter any difficulties when you went home this time?" Shen Jun was silent for a while, then nodded lightly. "Well, the company has laid off employees, and there are no plans now." Gu Zheng looked at her thoughtfully, and then his expression changed, as if he thought of something. "Actually, I have a project recently that is recruiting a supervisor, which is suitable for someone like you. How about it, do you want to try it?" This sentence was like a bombshell, completely detonating Shen Jun's heart. She didn't know how to answer for a while. This man who once made her heart moved, would actually lend a hand to herself? Chapter 2, The Enigmatic Invitation. Gu Zheng's proposal made Shen Jun's heart shake a little, but she didn't dare to agree casually. After all, she wasn't sure if she was up to the job, and Gu Zheng's invitation made her feel a little surprised and unreal. "It's a lot of experience, I don't think. Can I really do it?" Shen Jun asked. A smile appeared in Gu Zheng's eyes. "Experience is important, but I believe in your ability. I always remember how you did in school back then. You may not be ostentatious, but you are very steady and persistent, and these qualities are very important in this work." Shen Jun's heart moved, but he was still a little hesitant. Her mood fluctuated like a river and a sea, wanting to seize the opportunity, but she was afraid of failing again. In the end, Gu Zheng looked at her hesitation and smiled slightly. "You don't have to rush to answer, go back and think about it first, and then give me an answer." Shen Jun nodded, his heart was like being pulled by an invisible thread, unable to extricate himself. Chapter 3, The Turning Point of Life. In the days since he returned to his hometown, Shen Jun has not been able to calm down. She was thinking about Gu Zheng's words, and she was also thinking about her own life. Every time she stares out the window at the starry sky, she thinks of her younger self. At that time, she always longed to be able to walk out of the mountains, into the city, and live a different life. Now, it all seems to be quietly back to her. The lively atmosphere of the spring festival did not calm her mind. She began to reflect on her life over the years and re-examine her relationship with Gu Zheng. Although the two did not have much friendship before, Gu Zheng's understanding and encouragement to her made her feel a trace of warmth that she had not felt for a long time. She made a decision in her mind, even if the road ahead was unknown, no matter what, she could no longer stand still. She needs a chance to change, and Gu Zheng's invitation may be just the opportunity she needs. Chapter 4, Embarking on a New Journey. After the spring festival, Shen Jun returned to the capital to prepare for the job that Gu Zheng had proposed. On the day of the interview, she was wearing a simple black suit, looking a little nervous, but her heart was more determined than ever. In Gu Zheng's company, she has seen a more open and modern corporate culture. Gu Zheng's office is unassuming, but it is full of creativity and energy. He introduced several projects that the company is developing and explained to Shen Jun what she will do. I hope you can be here, like you did in school, silently giving, but you can achieve more. Gu Zheng's words were simple but powerful, as if they had injected a new force into Shen Jun. Shen Jun took a deep breath, then nodded in agreement, I do. From that moment on, she knew that a new chapter in her life was about to begin. Chapter 5, The Dawn of Rebirth. Shen Jun started her new job and quickly gained a foothold in the company. She is not as dazzling as other colleagues, but her strength and down-to-earth work attitude have gradually won the respect of her colleagues. Gu Zheng is no longer just her former senior, but has become a noble person in her career. A few months later, after a successful project delivery, Shen Jun was officially promoted to supervisor and was responsible for leading the development of a new project. She began to realize that she had never really failed, but had never found her own way. Every time she stands by the window of an office building and looks at the city lights in the distance, she feels a strong emotion in her heart. She finally understands that her place has long existed in this world, and it only takes a little courage and persistence to really get it back. Chapter 6, The Storm Rises. After Shen Jun's work gradually got on track, her life began to usher in new challenges. With her promotion to supervisor, she was given more responsibilities and began to lead a diverse team. The members of this team come from a variety of backgrounds, and each has their own strong personal characteristics. Shen Jun initially felt a little uneasy about these new challenges. After all, this is a role full of uncertainties, but with Gu Zheng's support, she gradually found her self-confidence. Gu Zheng's office has always been a place for her to communicate with him, and every corner here reminds her of the ignorant days in the past. Gu Zheng's concern for her made Shen Jun more powerful at work. But as the two worked together longer and longer, Shen Jun found himself feeling a little overwhelmed inside. Gu Zheng gave her more and more detailed guidance, and even began to care for her on some personal issues. This made Shen Jun feel a trace of subtle feelings, but she didn't dare to show it easily. One day, Shen Jun received a message from Gu Zheng after the meeting, there is a high-level gathering tonight, please prepare, I think you will be the highlight of tonight. Shen Jun looked at the text message, feeling a little surprised and a little expectant. In the evening, Shen Jun wore a dark blue evening dress with a little powder, and walked into the high-level meeting place that Gu Zheng said. It was an elegant reception, gathering many elites from the corporate world, and Shen Jun's appearance did not attract much attention, but she still felt that her every step was like stepping on the clouds, light and unstable. Gu Zheng seemed to be a little different in the party, he was wearing a well-tailored suit, and as he entered the venue, the attention of the surrounding area was immediately focused on him. He smiled slightly, but he didn't talk to the others too much, but looked at Shen Jun intently. Come, let me introduce you to a few friends. Gu Zheng politely stretched out his hand to Shen Jun and led her towards some business leaders. Shen Jun was a little nervous, lowered his head and smiled and followed Gu Zheng's steps. At that moment, she felt that she was also beginning to shine in this bright social circle. However, just as she was about to relax, a figure walked up to her from the corner. That was Gu Zheng's old acquaintance, Lu Yan. Lu, the shape of the character is complex, which means the sage with sharp words. Lu Yan is Gu Zheng's old friend and his right-hand man in his career, but there is always a subtle sense of competition between the two. Lu Yan's gaze swept over Shen Jun, with a hint of challenge between his eyebrows. He smiled slightly, walked towards Shen Jun, and his tone was indifferent but sharp. Gu Zheng said that your recent performance has been very good, but I didn't expect to be able to gain a foothold in this circle. Shen Jun was slightly uneasy, but she didn't flinch. She took a deep breath and responded, I just did what I had to do. Lu Yan shrugged his shoulders, seemingly disapproving with Shen Jun's calmness, but then turned around and left. Shen Jun felt an unknown pressure, but she also knew that this competition in the workplace had just begun. Chapter 7, Undercurrents. With the gradual rise of Shen Jun's status in the company, the pressure from all sides has also increased. She found that Gu Zheng's gaze was more and more fixed on her, and Lu Yan seemed to be particularly sensitive to her rise. The subtle competition between the two also unconsciously affected Shen Jun's mood. One day, when Shen Jun was sorting out the company's project report, he accidentally found a confidential document, which involved the company's future development plan and some unknown financial adjustments. These materials show that Gu Zheng may have some unknown private transactions with certain business partners, and these transactions are closely related to the future development direction of the company. Shen Jun was stunned for a moment. She instinctively sensed that the appearance of this information was not accidental, and that she seemed to be being swept into an even bigger storm. Her first reaction was to hand over the information to Gu Zheng, but she hesitated. Could this be that Gu Zheng deliberately let her see it? Or is he facing some kind of dilemma that cannot be made public? She decided to seal the data first and continue to monitor the situation. But in her heart, there is a faint layer of worry, if all this is really about Gu Zheng, or even about her own future, then how will she choose? Chapter 3, The Time of Choice. Time passed, and the contradiction between Shen Jun and Gu Zheng and Lu Yan became more and more intense. She found that Gu Zheng seemed to have some unusual dependence on her, and Lu Yan constantly challenged her leadership authority, and the tension between the two had pushed her to a limit. At this moment, an unexpected adjustment occurred within the company. Gu Zheng was suddenly transferred to the field on a business trip, and Shen Jun was temporarily designated as the person in charge of the project and directly took over all the decisions. All this seemed normal, but an even more terrifying thought appeared in Shen Jun's heart. Was she also dragged into some bigger whirlpool? The answer to everything seems to depend on whether she can make a clear choice. In the next few days, Shen Jun thought that no matter how hard he tried, there were always some things that he couldn't control. However, she has finally understood a truth: no matter what challenges she faces, only by sticking to her beliefs can she truly embrace every choice in life. Shen Jun took a deep breath, picked up her phone, and decided to give Gu Zheng a call to ask about the doubts in her heart. Gu Zheng, there are some things, I think we should talk about them. Chapter 9, The Truth Margin. Shen Jun's voice trembled a little, and Gu Zheng on the other end of the phone seemed to be able to hear the uneasiness in her tone. He paused for a moment before he spoke. Shen Jun, what's wrong? Is there something you can do? Shen Jun bit her lip, and the inner struggle made her a little unable to calm down. I found something in the company's data, about our future development plans. These data don't seem quite right. She told Gu Zheng about the doubts in that document, and her tone was full of helplessness and doubt. On the other end of the phone, Gu Zheng was silent for a few seconds before he said softly, "Did you give those materials to others?" "No," Shen Jun's heart raced, "but I feel that this is not just a simple financial adjustment, and there may be something more hidden behind it." Gu Zheng's voice still sounded calm, but there was a faint sense of tension in it that could not be ignored. "Shen Jun, no matter what you find now, don't make any decisions lightly. I'll be back right away and talk to you face to face." At that moment, Shen Jun felt an uneasy aura, and this kind of reaction did not seem like the calmness and rationality that an inconsequential senior executive should have. Gu Zheng's response seemed to contain some unspeakable secret. Shen Jun hung up the phone, his hands trembling slightly. She wondered, was there really something hidden in what Gu Zheng said, which she hadn't discovered? If it was really as she thought, Gu Zheng might be hiding some key information. And how should she choose? Chapter 10, The Heart is Like Water. Gu Zheng's return did not appear immediately as Shen Jun expected. On the contrary, a few days later, Shen Jun's mobile phone rang again, and this time, the news from Gu Zheng shocked her heart. "Our company will carry out an organizational structure adjustment, and some projects will be withdrawn. It is likely that it will be relocated." Shen Jun was stunned, and the words on the phone screen made her brain go blank. She felt as if she had been pushed into a huge whirlpool, and all that Gu Zheng said seemed to push her fate in an unknown direction again. "Gu Zheng, what do you mean?" Shen Jun's tone was a little hesitant. She couldn't believe everything in front of her. "Yes," Gu Zheng responded simply and directly, "our plan will be greatly adjusted, some departments will be disbanded, and you may want to reselect your location." Shen Jun's mood was extremely heavy. This was not just an adjustment in her work, such a change seemed to mean that her value in Gu Zheng's eyes had undergone some subtle changes. What was once support and care seems to be slowly turning into indifference and alienation. But Shen Jun was not in a hurry to react. She knows that in the face of such a storm, calmness is the most important thing. She silently put down her phone, took a deep breath, and began to think about her future options. At this time, she recalled those days of continuous struggle, and her confusion and fear were overcome in her choices again and again. Today, she can still choose her own future. Whether she is on the same front as Gu Zheng or chooses to go her own way, she will not give up easily. Chapter 11, The Lonely Choice. A week later, Shen Jun came face to face with Gu Zheng again. She sat in Gu Zheng's office, looking at him calmly, the face that had always been familiar, but it looked a little strange at this time. "Gu Zheng, what's going on with these adjustments? I need to know more details." Shen Jun's tone was very direct, and he no longer flinched as before. Gu Zheng let out a long sigh and reached out to rub his eyebrows. "What you want to know, maybe not what I can tell you. The stakes are so great that they are beyond our control. The company is now in a period of transition, and a lot of things are quietly happening." "Transition?" Shen Jun frowned slightly. "Gu Zheng, are you hiding something? If that's the case, why hasn't it been told to me?" Gu Zheng looked up at her, and his eyes revealed a trace of complicated emotions. He paused for a moment before he slowly spoke. "Shen Jun, I can't tell you too much, this is to protect you. All you can do now is choose how to go ahead." Shen Jun's heart suddenly shook, and the meaning of this sentence seemed to be not as simple as a simple job choice. It dawned on her that she might have been drawn into a game that was even more dangerous than she had imagined. Gu Zheng stood up, walked to her side, and whispered, "I don't want you to be implicated in these things, Shen Jun. You have more options, but in any case, you have to be careful." Shen Jun's eyes became firm, and she stood up and stared into Gu Zheng's eyes. Gu Zheng, I'm not a person who will back down easily. I will choose the path I believe in, no matter what the outcome is. Gu Zheng seemed to be a little stunned, and after a moment, he nodded slowly. I know you're a very strong person. Shen Jun turned to leave, his heart full of determination and unknown fear. She walked out of Gu Zheng's office, ready for the next big choice in her life. Chapter 12, Landscape of the Future. This time, Shen Jun no longer relied on anyone, whether it was Gu Zheng or Lu Yan. She decided to let go of everything and find a path that truly belonged to her. No matter how many thorns lie ahead, she is ready for the challenge. At this moment, she is no longer the confused woman, but a person who has the courage to face her fate. Shen Jun knew that she was embarking on a new journey, and no matter what the outcome was, she would no longer be afraid. She looks back at the familiar city that holds her dreams and will witness her growth. On this path, Shen Jun finally found his true position. The landscape of the future has just begun.